All right, all right. How you doing, everyone? My name is Ivan Collins. I'm here with AV Experts Podcast. Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of AV Experts Podcast, where we discuss everything going on in the audiovisual industry, new technology, new solutions. We talk about it all here on AV Experts Podcast. So thank you guys for joining us. We have very special guests here today to discuss some exciting products, exciting technology, and also, just to share his thoughts on how he views the audiovisual industry today. But before we get to it, this episode is brought to you by InnoFace Systems. InnoFace Systems provides state-of-the-art audiovisual solutions for government, commercial, and residential clientele. Give InnoFace Systems a call for all of your audiovisual needs. InnoFace can be reached at 877-721-4040. Again, that's 877-721-4040. Feel free to also check them out on the web at www.innofacesystems.com. That's INNOFACE systems.com. All right, so now that we got the formalities out the way, let's talk. Again, like I stated, folks, we have a very special guest. He's taken time out of his day to discuss this audiovisual world that we all live in, and we're just very gracious for it and thankful for it. Today we have Mr. Bob.Griffin of Vaddio / Legrand AV. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Bob.Griffin.
Thank you, Ivan. It is great to be here with you.
Hey, nice to have you, Bob. Nice to have you. Just, very briefly, just introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do for Legrand / Vaddio? Just give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do for the company.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So I am the business development manager for the Vaddio and Luxol product lines within the Legrand AV division. So for those who may or may not be familiar with Legrand, Legrand is a French-owned global conglomerate with numerous divisions, one of which is the Pro AV division. And within that Pro AV division, we have 8 individual brands that all work in conjunction with each other under the umbrella of Legrand AV. So you may be familiar with Cables to Go, Chief, Daylight, Middle Atlantic Products, Luxol Network Switches, Vaddio, Wire Mold,
Wow.
and Connect Track. We're adding that to our portfolio as well. So we are we may not be a one-stop shop for everything, but we have a lot of things, and it's really great to be part of a company that offers so much of a solution for folks. So,
wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of product and, I guess, coordination that has to happen, in order to be able to supply so many different products and services. So no, that's great. Now, Vaddio, just give us a quick backstory on how. Now, just so I'm clear, your role were you with Vaddio beforehand? Were you with Luxol, or were you with Legrand? Because I know there was some kind of buyout or merger that had happened. Yeah,
sure enough. Yes.
Break it down for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I had been with Vaddio for quite a while. When it was both an independently owned company, and then when it was part of Milestone, which was one of the initial mergers. Yeah. And then I actually left for a while, and then they brought me back in when Legrand purchased, as we developed a new go-to-market strategy under the Legrand umbrella. And so I'm back in the fold, if you will. Yeah. And it's been quite an interesting journey. Vaddio itself, it's interesting. So the spelling, for those who are just listening and trying to haven't heard of it before. So V like Victor, ADDIO. And I always tell folks, you can figure out how to spell it because it sounds just like audio with a V on the front of it. So we and that really is the background of the company, that we were started in 2003 by a gentleman who had come out of the AV integration business. And at the time, if we can remember, now 2 decades ago, it's hard to imagine today, but 2 decades ago, there wasn't a camera in every single space. Video was at the time sort of relegated to the broadcast video experts. And Vaddio was really started with the intent of bringing video in more successfully into the pro AV integration market.
Yes.
And of course, look where we are today. Now, we don't have one camera everywhere. We have cameras everywhere.
Very true. Very true. And I can personally attest for not only the quality of the Vaddio cameras, but also the longevity. I mean, I don't think I've ever had a Vaddio camera like really break on us or have issues. Maybe one time over the last 18 years I've been messing with AV. I mean, that's really a testimony to how solid the product is. So that's great. So like when we talk about Vaddio and we talk about, like you stated, there's a lot of different options nowadays. Like when you guys first started in the pro space, I personally remember there weren't a lot of options. I mean, they had like Sony had a nice standard definition camera. I think it was something 100. And, then there was mainly like the all-in-one Tandberg and Polycom and systems like that. And then there was Vaddio. What's the biggest difference between like a Vaddio camera and the way that it handles professional video and some of the, other brands that have kind of emerged out of the blue nowadays?
So one of the things that does set Vaddio apart from a lot of the, I would say the vast majority of the competition that's out there, and is that we are a US based design, engineer, and manufacturing company.
Nice.
All of our camera, video, and audio solutions are designed, engineered, and manufactured in Minnesota. And I like to say they are built by hardworking Americans who eat cheeseburgers for lunch. And we really do take pride in the fact that we are a U.S. manufacturer. We have been from day one.
Yeah.
And provides us with a level of quality control, which is simply not possible when something's being done in a factory halfway around the world and then put on for shipment here. So that is one of the things that we take great pride in. We think it reflects well on the, as you mentioned earlier, on the longevity of our products after they're installed. It also means that on those occasions where something does go wrong, and let's be honest, it's technology, something will happen from time to time.
Very true.
All of our tech support team is right there in Minnesota, and their cubicles are right across the wall from the engineer that did the design for it. So it creates a really cohesive team, which I'm grateful for as a business development person. That I can say, unequivocally, those folks are going to support, and it also is great that, when I'm and they're sharing some of the ways in which they're using our products and some of the things that maybe they would like to see us work on in the future. It means that I can talk directly to my colleagues at the factory, and with the design engineers, we can look at what it takes to bring those suggestions online for new product development. So
Nice. Very, very cool. So over the last 2 years, there's kind of been this new emergence of like video signal types. I mean, there's obviously HDMI. We went from composite video to S video and component to HDMI. And now, of course, we have SDI, which can cover or carry the high definition signal and even 4K in some instances.
Sure.
Now we have NDI. Are you kind of up to speed on all these different video transmission types, and what should a customer be using versus what's best? I know we got 4K and now even 8K coming. What's the best signal? What's the best way to get that signal from point A to B, in your opinion?
Yeah, you're absolutely right that there are a lot of different ways that it can be approached in today's world, and just about every signal type has some inherent advantage and a disadvantage to go with that. Certainly in the broadcast world, SDI, HDSDI, 12G SDI, which is a 4K 60 format. All of those are still go-to standards in the broadcast world. And one of the reasons that they are go-to standards is because they utilize coax cable.
Yes.
And with a locking BNC connector on the end of it. And if anyone has ever been in live production environments and had an HDMI cable get pulled out because it doesn't lock,
Right.
We all know that, in the broadcast world, failure is not an option, right? You have to have 100% uptime.
Right.
And, and a cable coming loose can't be a problem that you deal with in a production truck. So SDI is still going to be the preferred method for sure in a live environment. Now,
yes.
in a what I would call in-house production environment, and distributed environments, the internet is becoming the focal point for how we communicate our video platforms today.
Yes.
So you mentioned NDI. So NDI is one type of AV over IP application. The SMPTE, which sets the standards for the broadcast industry, has developed the SMPTE 2110 standard, which is the broadcast standard for AV over IP. Vaddio has our own AV over IP solution, which is designed to make it easier for folks that are installing integrated systems to use standard network protocol as the transport. Nice. So the reality is that all of those platforms are going to continue to coexist for the foreseeable future. Now, will one of the IP platforms eventually win out and become the de facto solution? It's very possible, but right now it would be very unclear which one that would be, and that's not going to happen anytime in the next, few years, right? And when we start looking at 8K, now unless we develop some really aggressive, very high quality compression solutions,
right,
running 8K video over anything less than a 40 gig network backbone is just not going to work.
It's not going to work.
And a 40 gig backbone right now is super, super expensive.
Right.
Very
true.
so the good news is that we have a robust AV over IP solution that will work on a 1 gig network.
Yeah.
That we have, an SDVoE solution that will work almost uncompressed 4K on a 10 gig network.
Wow.
And then, a 40 gig solution is there.
Yeah.
But for anybody except the ultra high end producers, we're probably quite a ways out from seeing that implemented. We know the display manufacturers always drive higher resolutions much faster than the industry can keep up with.
Always been that way. Yeah.
It has indeed, right? And because a display manufacturer has to continue selling new models, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a debatable argument the extent to which the human eye is able to discern the difference between a 1080p signal and a 4K signal. And certainly, actually, at about a 7-foot distance on a 65-inch display, it is impossible to discern the difference between the two.
Wow.
With the human eye.
Yeah.
But that's, try to go out today and buy a brand new 1080p 65-inch display, and it would be impossible to find, on the retail market. So
yeah. No. Very good point. Very good point. So there's been a lot of talk about, virtual reality, virtual meetings, the metaverse. NVIDIA is about to launch the Omniverse. This whole concept of taking your meetings first from in person, like they were, right, now to video conferencing, and the future being, potentially virtual, in that, there may not be as big of a need for the camera as we know it, right? What are your thoughts on that whole concept of virtual reality, omniverse technology? What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that?
Well, I will say that the idea that we can sit here today and imagine what the world will be like 10 years from now is a humbling proposition. And so I never say never to anything, but I think that humans as human beings, we have an innate desire for connection with each other. And I don't think the desire to be present with other people is going to be fulfilled in a virtual world.
Right.
That said, the capabilities of virtual world will have significant impact, particularly in places where, I'll throw a for instance out there, which I can't speak to authoritatively, but is constantly, put out as, I'm a certified EMT. I mean, I'm not. I'm gonna say, if I was a certified EMT, and I'm in the field and I cannot extricate this patient from, but I have a VR connection to an emergency, surgeon at the local hospital.
Wow.
who is literally, in real time working with me and that patient in the field. That changes, things in a whole new way, right?
Absolutely.
So will it be, I always, I think at CES this past year, there was a whole lot made of holograms, right?
Yeah.
And and it will certainly be interesting to see, if moving forward, the CEO just, is present in the meeting, not just on the screen in a video conferencing world like we've become used to, although quite frankly, we're still struggling to get that working perfectly as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But what would it be like if they were, they're full size and as a hologram, in the space?
Yes.
So, I will say all of those things will function much better in a professional production space or in an individual VR user environment.
Yes.
Getting them into the average corporate meeting space, I think will be a tremendous challenge, both technically and cost wise.
Right. So if I'm correct, I kind of hear you saying that, it's cool stuff. It's going to be a part of the future. However, there's still going to be a need for, in-person interaction and getting that technology or that video out to others. Is that kind of?
Yeah. And I think one of the good things that's come out of the pandemic is an understanding that and the phrase that's being used today is meeting equality.
Okay.
And meeting equality means that in what we're striving for is that the remote user, the person who's at home or the person who is on the road, is equally participant in the meeting with the people who are in the room.
Wow.
And we know that in the past, even in video conferencing environments, the person who's dialing in is not an equal participant.
Very true.
It is not meeting equality. Right. So we have a long way to go to get to meeting equality, but at least now it is something that is in the minds of those who are both planning the meeting and planning the technology, that they understand that if they're moving forward in a hybrid work environment, every meeting they have needs to accommodate a hybrid environment. And so that raises the bar on what is, what's required and what's acceptable for the quality of the experience for the person who's remote as well as in the space.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'd be great if, no matter where you are, you can share whatever content you want, have access to it easily, hear, see, interact, touch, feel, that whole nine. I mean, once we get there, I think that it'll be a pretty amazing thing. So no, that's great. That's awesome. So, in terms of Vaddio right now, like what's the hottest thing right now for you guys? What part of the audiovisual industry is kind of popping the most from a camera perspective or from a Vaddio perspective at this point?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the interesting things in Vaddio's history is that one of our landmark products was a product which is still in production today called the AV Bridge.
Yes.
And the AV Bridge was the very first product of its kind to take professional video and audio and combine them into USB.
Absolutely.
Now,
it was the first. Definitely.
It was absolutely a first, and it was the brainchild of our founder, who was a mad scientist. And now today, we use USB all the time, and probably you and I are using USB for all the connectivity we have on this call, right?
Right.
But at the time, USB was just beginning to replace the PS2 connectors for your keyboard and mouse.
Absolutely.
And the idea of using it for professional video and audio was just that was still barely a glimmer in anybody's eye. So I say that from the standpoint that we've been doing USB AV for longer than anybody else in the field, and it still continues to be a huge percentage of our business, both from a product development and a growth market for us. And but USB becomes particularly tricky when you start talking about multiple cameras.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Connecting a single camera and a single microphone is close to plug and play, although I still describe USB as plug and pray, because we're asking USB to do a lot of things it was never designed for.
So true.
And we're still struggling with USB 3 for any kind of cable distance.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to roll out USB 4, which will support 48 gigabits of bandwidth. And so the USB world is here to stay, but it is still a challenge. And so for us, one of our big growth areas right now in the last year and a half has been the platform that we refer to as Easy IP. And that is using traditional IP protocols. So we're running audio and video over the network, and then we're using a decoder to pull that signal from AV over IP into USB.
Nice.
And the advantage of that is now I can place my decoder wherever it makes the most sense for the client's computer.
Nice.
So, and the decoder, is just a half rack, 1RU little box. So it could go in a lectern, it could go under a table, it could go behind a display, it could, and then I don't have to worry about extending the USB signal. Because and USB is a lot more reliable if you don't have to extend it.
It is.
And so that AV over IP platform has been really, really significant for us, especially in higher education, where a lot of those classrooms have more than one camera. And the Easy IP platform allows you to switch between cameras seamlessly through the network switch without any additional hardware. And so now I could have a 2-camera system, a 3-camera system without really by just pulling another cat cable to the camera location. So
nice.
That for us, that's a scenario where it's allowed us to really leverage our experience in USB and obviously our with having Luxel as a network company, as one of our sister brands. We it really is a nice marriage of the capability both on the networking side and on the AV side. So it's been a really cool product.
Nice. Now you just said something about multiple cameras and auto switching and things of that nature, right? So we've built systems where we've had to do some heavy duty programming to get switching to happen at the right time based on different positions within a room or a space, right? So this notion that a camera can follow you around, right? And be able to know where you are to get the best view at the perfect time, in my opinion, is huge, because we've got a lot of clients who, of course, since COVID, who are transitioning, or in the process of transitioning back to the office, or kind of 50-50. But the need for a more robust visual solution within the conference room or the training room is probably higher now than it's ever been. But folks are tired of just the straight on shot of the instructor. When someone in the audience has a question, they want to be able to see that as well virtually. Is there any kind of solution that you all have, or maybe working on, and pushing forward, that kind of speaks to that technology?
Well, so a couple of things we currently have, and a couple of things that I'll be excited to come back at a future time and talk to you about.
All right.
Hint, right, yes.
Yeah.
So it is a challenge, as in working with clients, because when we go out of the personal space and into the corporate space or education space, and you're in a 12-seat room, or a 30-seat training room, or a 300-seat lecture hall, the things that work individually one-on-one in your home office don't translate into those larger spaces, right? And so one of the good things that we do, with our cameras, is equip them with 30x or 40x optical zoom capability for larger spaces. The ability to, as in incorporating some other heavy lifting programming stuff and some other technology in the space, have the cameras respond to where the question's coming from, or whatever the scenario might be.
Yeah.
The big challenge we all run into, of course, is that clients' expectations are that they would like an automated system to function the same way that a produced video solution is going to work.
Very true.
And the first thing we all have to do in order to be responsible is to talk them down off that ledge. Because it's just not going to happen the way they envision it in their eyes, right?
Right.
And I always said that one of the challenges with video is, for the most part, the videos that you and I watch on a daily basis are very, very highly produced professional solutions. Now, in the era of TikTok, I think that has changed.
Yeah.
If we go to TikTok and YouTube, we see a lot of stuff that is not highly produced and does not look very good at all, quite frankly.
That's true. Yeah.
But generally speaking, the stuff, if we turn on the TV in our house, we see things that are done at a very, very high level of production.
Yes.
And our expectation in our mind, even if we don't verbalize it, is that we expect video to always look that good.
Yes.
And the reality is that is a challenge.
It is.
Both from especially if they expect it to just happen, right? In some automated sense.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to do if you have people, switching the camera and moving the cameras, because the cost differential between what goes into a production studio and what goes into even a very high end like performing arts space,
right,
it is a factor of it's an exponential difference in cost. I like to say that, my most expensive camera, MSRP, might be $10,000, which to the average consumer sounds like an awful lot of money. When in reality, if you go to a sporting event, the camera that ESPN is using, has $300,000 just in the lens.
Easy. Easy. Yeah.
So again, helping folks balance their expectations against reality is, I think, is probably one of the bigger challenges. But the good news is that as computer processing continues to get faster and faster and cheaper, we are able to do things that have more AI capability in it. And one of the things that concerns me as a product development person is I want to make sure that if we're incorporating AI, that we're emphasizing the intelligence, not the artificiality. And so getting AI to look, feel, and act like an operator, like a good videographer would do it if they were behind the lens. That's there's a little bit of a steep learning curve there, and we're certainly moving along that way. Our new IntelliShot camera, with its auto framing capability, has a lot of that functionality.
Nice.
I still want to talk to folks and understand their application and what they're expecting. So that we can, help them find the right fit. But, it definitely is one of those things where the incorporation of video is not likely to slow down, going forward.
Yeah, very true. No, that's good stuff, Bob. That's good stuff. So over the last couple of years, we've all had some interesting times with the pandemic, and it's been just different, right? How has that impacted Legrand, Vaddio? How has the pandemic just impacted you overall?
Well, I will tell you that I don't remember the exact date, but I want to say it was around March the 13th of 2020. I was in Times Square for a trade show, and it was right at the time when the NBA was stopping their season, and I remember setting up for that trade show and talking to my colleagues saying, I sure hope nobody shows up to this thing. Which no salesperson has ever said about a trade show, right? But we wanted to get out of New York and just get home. And at the time, we thought, well, this will be a few weeks, we'll get through this, right? Well, the virus had other plans. And so one of the things I said, and we've said at Legrand, is the pandemic arbitrarily picked winners and losers, depending on what industry you're in, or where you were in that industry, or where you were in the country, for that matter. Sometimes, for us as a camera manufacturer, it was a record-setting year, because the demand just went off the charts, and particularly in higher ed, that was trying to figure out how to, because they basically shut down for the entire spring and went to remote learning. But they're trying to, they're looking at the fall, trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to do to get ready for not having everybody in the classroom all the time,
Absolutely.
And so we could not even begin to keep up with demand. that year. And and anybody who tried to get a webcam to work from home, good luck. Right. And so so that increase in demand hasn't slowed down. What has slowed down is the availability of the components that need to go into the products to in order to be able to ship them. So everybody knows about the global supply chain shortage. I think folks generally don't understand how many microchips go into any product that they buy. It just like wasn't everywhere, right? And it wasn't on your radar because it wasn't anything that, unless you were in the chip business, there's no reason that you really would care about where they came from or so right now, I mean, we're as a U.S. manufacturer, the good news is that we don't deal with a lot of the challenges of overseas production and shipping. But all the components that go into our boards are coming from the same factories that everybody else is using. And very true. And the backlog is amazingly long. So we've been really fortunate with our engineers that they've been able to the Legrand has supported us in buying whatever components we needed to get and bringing those in-house. And then our engineers have worked and reworked board designs based on what chipsets we could get versus which ones we had originally designed for. So that's been it's been a monumental challenge and continues to be so.
I bet.
The good news is that out in the field, everybody understands at one level or another what is going on.
Yes.
But everybody also wants to get their projects completed, right?
It's like, we understand, but please send me this camera.
Right. That's absolutely it. And so we've learned a lot about what just-in-time manufacturing looks like. And it's going to take us another solid year or more to get over this hump. And when the dust settles, if you will, I know that a lot of folks that are in supply chain logistics and manufacturing are gonna go back and look and kind of evaluate what the best solution is moving forward for manufacturing, because we sure hope we don't go through this cycle again, but we also have to assume that if it's not a pandemic, it could be something else.
Could be. We're seeing that with gas prices now.
Absolutely, and if there, and if a conflict breaks out in any places that are, doing a lot of, minerals and metals for mining, those are all things that impact us on a daily basis. So no, that's great stuff. Well, listen, Bob, this has been a great conversation. I do again appreciate your time. You dropped some serious nuggets, some great information for our listeners and viewers to take from. Anything you want to share with the people before we close out? Also, go ahead and share your contact, your Instagram or your social media if you have that, website, all that good stuff, so folks can get in touch with you. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you're going to find me on Twitter at AV_Bob. And on the with emails for Legrand, it's going to be Robert.Griffin, GRIFFIN at Legrand, which is LEGRAND.com. So
Good stuff. Yeah, yeah. No, and yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for a great camera for a conference type scenario, or even streaming or place of worship, church, I can personally attest that Vaddio is a great brand to go with. And definitely give Bob a shout and experience the Vaddio difference for yourself. And you won't be unhappy, I can assure you. But again, thank you, Bob, for your time today on AV Experts Podcast. Again, I appreciate it. And it's been great talking with you.
You too, Ivan. Have a great day. And thanks for the support from Interface Systems.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.